Welcome into another edition of the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. I'm your host, Jake McDonnell. You can find me on Twitter at jmcdonnell95, and all of our content is at charmcitybirdwatch.com. Again, we are at CharmCityBW on Twitter and Facebook.com/CharmCityBirdwatch, as well as Charm City Birdwatch on Instagram. And of course, you're listening to this podcast crystal clear through either iTunes or SoundCloud. Be sure to subscribe to us on either iTunes or SoundCloud under the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. And if you give us a 5-star review on iTunes and we see it, we may read it on a future episode, the 5-star review. So tough loss for the Ravens today. The Chicago Bears handing the Ravens a 27-24 overtime win. The Bears coming into this game 1-4 with their lone win being at home in Chicago against the Steelers. The Ravens, after 2 straight losses, kind of rebounded last week, picking up a big road win against the Derek Carrless Raiders, 30-17 win out there. But then they come home and disappoint. I'm sure a lot of fans thought that the Ravens were going to squeak this one out today. I certainly thought that the Ravens were going to win. I picked them to win this game. And it was pretty one-sided throughout much of the first half, as as we saw again the struggles of the offense. But then, the Bears, they make it. I mean, even though they hung with the Ravens the entire time, they gave the Ravens a lot of chances to win the game, and the Ravens just couldn't get it done, particularly on offense. Here to break it all down with me is our author for Charm City Birdwatch. He is Nolan McGraw. Out on Twitter, he is Nolan_MCG, and he did our recap tonight. Any information, if you didn't get to catch the game, you want to check out our recap on CharmCityBirdwatch.com. He just threw it up there recently. So Nolan, we were both at the game. I was at the game with my Ebony Bird podcast friends, the other weekly podcast I do for the fan-sided affiliate of the Baltimore Ravens, Ebony Bird. Hadn't met those guys before, Joe and Chris, until today, so be sure to check all of our content out for that on the Ebony Bird podcast, which you can find on iTunes and Blog Talk Radio. I know I didn't see you on the big screen, those nice new big screens at the stadium, but you did text me at one point saying that you were on the big screen, so I want to give you a shout-out for that. But man, back to 500. The Steelers just defeated an unbeaten Chiefs team. Man, bad day in Baltimore, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, really, really disappointing day. Besides getting on the big screen, today was just a huge bummer.
So yeah, as you alluded to, disappointing day. A punt fest to begin the game, and of course the Bears eventually were the first team to pull ahead, and just so many mistakes on the Ravens' offensive side. Alex Collins, he didn't fumble today, but then Max Williams fumbled. He ended up, getting out of the game. The first 2 Ravens picks in the 2015 draft class had opportunities to shine today on offense, with Max Williams getting some time in, and Brashad Perryman taking that big hit, and he had to come out of the game for a concussion. I know that's a tough break. I know the hit was really hard. I know anybody that would have gone, an old person had gone through that, probably would have been on the ground like he was for a while, but this was his chance to shine. He was given an opportunity to start, as it was announced before the game that, Jeremy Maclin was going to miss the game with a shoulder injury. He had a chance to step up, and I know it's not his fault he got injured once again, but finishes the game again with no receptions, and he has 4 on the season. And then, guys like Chris Moore, who the Ravens took last year, get a chance to step in and make plays, and it just, keeps enforcing that the whole Perryman-Williams picks, the whole 2015 draft class is just extremely insufficient, disappointing, bust. You can't say anything other than they're a bust right now.
Right, and like you said, you would have liked to see him stay in the game to try to, rebound from that bad drop. But, that's just the way it goes, and it's disappointing. But, he took a big hit there, but really would have liked to see him bring in that catch. But, that's just, I felt like those 2 interceptions were just such bad luck, because for them to deflect off of Perryman and I believe Chris Moore's hands and then find their way right into the hands of the defenders was just, the ball could have gone anywhere else. It had to go right to the defender. So that was just the most disappointing part of the day for me, was those 2 interceptions that really shouldn't have been interceptions.
Well, we take a look around the NFL, and it's such a week-to-week league, and a team like the Chiefs today, coming into the game 5-0, it all comes down to consistency. The Chiefs didn't have any consistency today, and they lost. The Ravens, when they went out to Oakland last week, they picked up the win. It all comes down to consistency and carrying that success on offense over, and they did not do that today. But we look at the sample size. It's been 5 games now. Yes, they had a good game last week. But again, looking at the sample size, there's been more bad than good, a lot more bad than good for the Ravens offense. Flacco, he went 24 for 41 today, the 2 interceptions, as you alluded to, just 180 yards through the air, averaging 4.4 yards per completion. But I can't really put all the blame on him. Yes, he didn't play great, but not having Macklin, not having Perryman for over a half, I'm not making excuses for Flacco, but there were a lot of missed plays by receivers today. Again, it was good to see guys like Chris Moore get in there and get some plays in, get some reps, but a lot of missed opportunities for the Ravens receivers. Mike Wallace was a non-factor. Chris Matthews had that one bad drop that led to an interception. Flacco wasn't good by any means, but he was not getting any help from his receivers whatsoever.
No, yeah, and that would just reiterate my point, is that really all of the offensive blame should be pretty much on them. The only other part of the offense that I would say should take the blame today would be the offensive line. And coming into this week, even though they played really, really well against Oakland, I didn't have super high hopes for them because, again, without Yonda, they're just not a quality offensive line. So my expectations were still low, but they just couldn't stop that Bears front line. The run game was okay. It seems like they stuck with it, but the Bears were right there and ready on defense.
Yeah, both Alex Collins and Buck Allen averaging almost 5 yards a carry, with Collins getting 15 of those reps and Allen with 10 of them. I think we're getting a little bit into the season now. It certainly looks like Alex Collins is becoming the main starter in the run game. I don't think he's the long-term solution, but he is. It really goes to show. I mean, it's not a bad thing that Alex Collins is making plays by any means. It's a great thing to see, considering they swept them off Seattle's practice squad. But it really just goes to show the state that the offense is in when your top playmaker is a guy that they picked off the practice squad a couple weeks ago. And then we're talking about touchdowns. The Ravens offense didn't score any touchdowns today. They were both special teams plays. One was by Campanaro, who's barely seen the field in his 4 years of playing time with the Ravens. That was good to see. And then the other one, that kick return by Bobby Rainey, which looked kind of like a fluke, but it ended up being a perfectly legal play. He wasn't even on the active roster until this week. When your only 2 touchdowns that you score in the game are from the special teams players, and they're players that aren't supposed to have that big of an impact, or players that have just been brought in, it really goes to show about the lack of playmakers you have or the injuries that you have on offense. And obviously with the Ravens, it's both right now. Yeah,
definitely. It was nice to see Rainey come in this week and have that big of an impact on the game. It was a really exciting touchdown run to witness. And I give credit to Campanaro as well. That punt return was really well done by him to read the coverage like that and find the open hole. But yeah, it's just not having anyone on offense to really count on when they get into the red zone. They don't have somebody that, when they get down there, that Joe knows he can go to him and he's going to come down with it for the touchdown. So I think that's the big problem on offense. With Macklin out, I don't know what his injury is right now, but the longer he's out, the worse, because now it seems like Perryman, we don't know what he's going to be like going into next week. So there's just a lot of uncertainty with this offense right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had opportunities to score touchdowns. The 2 field goals they got, really, the offense had opportunities to, get in the red zone to score. There were 2 in particular, and I think one of the plays resulted in a turnover. Just being at the game and coming home, I haven't had a chance to really analyze, the box score or anything. But it seemed like they were, they were able to. Going into this game, we knew that the Bears had one of the best front sevens in the NFL. That was established. But going into this game, the Ravens, they were able to move the ball. As the game went on, at the beginning of the game, it was kind of a struggle, but as the game went on, they did move the ball a little bit. But when they did and got into the red zone, they could just do absolutely nothing with it. Whether it be running, it seems like Collins and Allen would get tackled in the backfield, and it seemed like Flacco was looking a lot towards Watson and Wallace, the two veterans, but Wallace was getting a lot of the attention because of the lack of receivers the Ravens had on the other side. And then Watson, I'm sorry, but the guy's 36 years old, a big guy coming off a torn Achilles. He just can't break tackles. I mean, yeah, he's going to get you catches down the field, but no yak whatsoever. And then the thing that really bothered me was when they were in overtime and the Ravens had their offensive possession, just 3 and out. Absolutely no. All they needed was a field goal. They had the ball set up at around midfield. They weren't at midfield yet, but they were close to it. It's really concerning. We've seen this theme with the offense for a while, and Joe especially. They have no urgency, and I don't know what the solution is to that, but it makes you just watching from in your seats like just so upset, and I just don't understand what the problem is. What do you think about that issue?
Yeah, I definitely agree about that. The overtime possession, just watching that, I believe it was 3rd and 2, and in that scenario, you should be able to convert that pretty easily if you run just a quick pass. He was looking about 5 yards downfield and was way off with his throw. I think he was probably pressured too. But you don't need 5 yards there. You just need a couple yards. And, they probably could have even ran it on that play if they wanted to. They picked up a big 4th down in the 4th quarter. Where they did a quick handoff. It was 4th and 1, so they picked that up there. So, it was just bad play calling, in my opinion. And like you said, all you need is a field goal. You don't have to go very far because Tucker obviously is one of the best kickers in the league. So it was just really disappointed to see them stall out at that part of the field.
Turning it over to the defense a little bit, they got after Trubisky a lot. They pressured him. They ended up with 7 quarterback hits and a handful of sacks. But, man, going into the game, we knew that, the Chicago rushing game of Jordan Howard and Cohen was going to be an issue, and it certainly was. Howard rushed for 167 yards, and then Cohen rushed for 32. Trubisky had 32 rushing yards as well. So as a team, the Bears finished with 231 rushing yards, and that just goes to show the loss that Brandon Williams is having on this defense. Really, I think it's one of the biggest losses on the team, and we know there's nothing that the Ravens could have done to prevent this, but give credit to guys like Michael Pierce and Willie Henry for playing their tails off, but they're not Brandon Williams and they're not Brent Urban. You really hope that Brandon Williams gets back soon when, playing teams like the Dolphins who, Ajayi's not having a fantastic season, but he has a history of breaking out. Having Williams back is really going to help this defense, but until that happens, we've seen it, against Jacksonville, we saw it against Pittsburgh. Oakland was all right last week, but then again today, just this rushing attack that other teams are having on this beaten down defense, especially in the front line, really taking a toll on the Ravens defense, and it just goes to show as the game went on, they just started to wear down.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to Chicago for coming in with a solid game plan, in my opinion. They had their rookie quarterback, and they were going to essentially try to win the game by keeping him as a game manager, and they did that. He went 8 for 16 today. When was the last time you saw an opposing quarterback beat you with just 8 completions and 113 yards? But, he was safe with the ball. He didn't turn it over. And they committed to the run. They ran 54 times. So, they came in with a solid game plan, and they were able to get it done.
As you texted me on the way home, you said you heard me on the radio on WBAL. I did call into the post-game show with guys like Keith Mills, Brett Hollander, and Pete Gilbert just to I didn't really phase the question the way I kind of wanted to. As the sample sizes I alluded to, 4 out of 5 games, the Ravens offense really struggling, and all the issues this team's facing now, who the blame should go to, whether that be Flacco, whether that be the coaching staff of, Harbaugh and Morningweg, for example, or, whether it's a front office problem with Ozzie Newsome. And the answer that they kind of gave me is it's kind of a mixed bag. I think I kind of agree in the fact that there's fingers to point everywhere. It's hard. There's a lot wrong with this team right now. I don't know. I'm not completely ready to say they need to blow things up, but we are approaching a time now where the offense is among the worst in the league. I know there's not a lot they can do about injuries, but you just look at these performances week in and week out. From watching the press conferences after the game, this team's not happy. The defensive players aren't happy. I don't know what the solution is to fix it, but when you look at the way the Ravens team is constructed, with so much emphasis being on the defense after a season in which the offense struggled mightily, are you blaming Flacco more? Are you blaming the coaching staff more, or the front office more? Who do you think the most, like, you don't have to say a mixed bag. There's blame to go everywhere, but who deserves the most blame in your opinion?
The most blame, it is a tough question, like you said, because really it's just, obviously it's spread around so much. But you know what? I'll go with Joe. He really needs to just step it up. Today, really, if you look at the stat sheet, it's going to look like a terrible game. But, both picks were not his fault. But at the end of the day, he's got to make smarter plays. And there was a couple moments today where he really just made some boneheaded plays. There was a red zone drive. I believe he attempted to throw the ball when he was past the line of scrimmage. That stands out as just a play that he shouldn't be making at this point in his career. So I'll go with him. Maybe, and besides that, probably coaching. You look at what they did to beat the Raiders and then turn around and come into this week and just look completely clueless. You got to wonder, what were they doing to prepare for this week, and why was it such a different result between last week and this week? So I would say Flacco and the coaching.
I really can't get a read on Flacco. I really can't. I know the Ravens haven't been successful the last 3 years, with the exception of Kubiak being here for the one season, ever since they won the Super Bowl. But you just look at him, and I know it's his personality, but I don't know if he really has a passion for this anymore. I mean, you watch him, press conferences after the game through the week. It's the same old monotone, Flacco that we were all used to seeing. But when he comes off the field, I don't see him talking to his guys. I don't see him fired up. I can't see everything on the sideline, but from what I see, I don't see the drive, the passion that 31 other quarterbacks in the NFL, with the exception of Ben Roethlisberger now, so it seems to have, with getting their guys riled up and together. Not having a quarterback that can do that, I think it really takes a toll on the entire offense.
Yeah, that's a very popular argument against Flacco, but that's not the issue for me. I think the issue with Flacco for me in recent years, with him coming back from injuries and whatnot, has just been his mechanics seem to be way off what they used to be and where they should be at this point in his career. This year especially seems to have a fear of rolling out and creating time, getting away from pressure, and it's just frustrating to watch that, because he used to be a pretty mobile guy of rolling out and not being afraid to, do the play action passes. And honestly, that's where he found a lot of his success with when Kubiak was here. The play action was their bread and butter. So it's just really disappointing to see him just stand there and take hits when, he can use his legs, create more time, and put himself in a better situation. So, his personality at this point, that's not my problem. I think he's putting in the work in the week. I know he's putting in the work, and I know he cares, but he's just mechanically, he's got things he needs to work out, and he needs to fix them fast.
I want to take it back to the front office a little bit, because you didn't really place any blame on them. A big reason of why the offense is struggling so much, I mean, you could look at the recent draft picks ever since they won the Super Bowl, and it's either 13 of 18 or 13 of 17. I'm pretty sure it's 13 of 17 of their first draft picks in the first or second rounds, dating back the last 4 seasons, have been defense. Especially after 2016, and we saw how much this offense struggled. I have to blame Ozzie Newsome in the front office a little bit for not giving Flacco more to work with. Like, you could point to the running back. I know they had a chance to take a guy like Kareem Hunt in the draft. You could point to that. You could point to not being able to draft receivers through the draft, and then bringing in guys like Macklin and Wallace, who, yes, are veterans who have established names but aren't necessarily game changers. The tight ends, there's only so much you can do when all of your tight ends are injury prone and getting suspended all the time. And then, of course, we have the entire shit show, for lack of a better term, with the offensive line and what it's turned into. I think there needs to be some blame placed on the front office. In this league, you have to have a very strong offense to win consistently. It's just the NFL we live in. And the Ravens front office, in defense of the offense right now, this unit has not been given a lot of tools in the last couple of years to compete with the likes of the Patriots and the likes of the Steelers. Yes, the defense, it's good to have all this speed and all this size, but even we're seeing, no Brandon Williams, granted, when the offense is struggling as much as it is and not producing, and the defense is on the field as often as it is, it's going to take a toll on them too. So I gotta put some of the blame on Ozzie and the front office too for not giving the offense at least a little bit of help in an attempt to make them better.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me because coming into this year, I was happy that they really stocked up on defense, and it's a hard thing to judge because unless you're, a part of the drafting team and you're in there and you're studying and you know where all of these guys are getting drafted in every round, I don't know if there was offensive guys that, real talented offensive guys that they could have drafted around where they were picking. You never know if there was anybody really that good around where they had picks. So there's a lot of variables with that, but obviously, they should have done a little bit more to focus on the offense this offseason. Macklin, by the time they signed Macklin, it was like everyone was just breathing a sigh of relief that they actually brought somebody in, because up until that point, they really hadn't done anything. But again, going back to the injuries, it doesn't help that, two guys that you brought in, Macklin and Danny Woodhead, are both injured as of this week. Again, I don't know what Macklin is going through moving forward, but as of right now, those two guys are out, and that's not good. And offensive line-wise, they drafted some guys there recently. Stanley's still in there. He's the best offensive lineman they have right now. But, a couple, I think one or two guys they drafted this year are injured now. So, they have made some moves, but they've gone down with injuries. So there's nothing you can do about it at that point.
Nolan McGraw, our Charm City Birdwatch author and analyst, joining us to recap the Ravens' 27-24 overtime loss to Chicago Bears. Again, you're listening to the Charm City Birdwatch podcast on either iTunes or SoundCloud. Looking ahead, the Ravens up next week taking on the Minnesota Vikings. First time that the Ravens will travel into that nice new stadium to take on the Vikings, who beat the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers suffered the broken collarbone that could cost him his season. Then 4 days later, they return home to face the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. And then two road games at Tennessee and at Green Bay, both Sunday games at 1 o'clock. So 3 out of their next 4 games are going to be on the road. But hey, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. I mean, they've gone 2-1 on the road so far this season. I don't know if I'd even count well, you should count the London game. But this is really, I want to talk about the attendance. I mean, yeah, we weren't expecting a sellout for the Bears and Ravens game today, but the home field advantage for the Ravens seems to be all but gone. I mean, they're 1-2 so far at home this season, and a number of factors go into it. I think some fans aren't showing up because of the anthem stuff, but I think a bigger percentage of people that aren't showing up are, it's been an ongoing debate for years now in the NFL with the at-home experience. And I do, seeing those big screens the Ravens put in the stadium for the first time, it was nice to see that, and it's nice to see them putting fantasy numbers up there and a bunch of stats. They have plenty of room to do so now. Those are very nice. But, I think another reason why people aren't coming, and I've been saying this for a while, is just because of the lack of success the team has had in recent seasons. And another reason could be is because they don't have as many big name players as they as they used to. And I say this because a lot of people have been turning to the whole excuse of, oh, well, I'm not attending the game if they're not standing for the anthem. And okay, if you want to do that, fine. But I don't think the attendance is being hurt by that specifically. I think it's more along the lines of the in-home experience you get with all the stuff the NFL provides streaming their games. And then at the same time, when you've missed the playoffs 3 out of 4 seasons and you don't have Ray Lewis and you don't have Ed Reed, you don't have Jamal Lewis, you don't have Derek Mason and all these guys who were, big sellers in terms of jerseys and memorabilia, all these factors go in. The Orioles have seen it too, but I think, they haven't been competitive. They've been competitive, but they haven't made a serious run at anything for a while, with the exception of the wild card game last year. But the attendance, I think, is more related to the in-home experience and then the lack of success the team has had recently. What do you think is causing it?
Yeah, it's definitely a variable. There are a lot of different things that contribute. And then this year there's a whole nother aspect with the anthem protests. So that's a whole nother, thing going on. But this is something that I would probably be more inclined to judge when it comes to the end of the season. Because right now there's been 3 home games. The first one was going to be a good crowd because that's your home opener. Pittsburgh was a pretty decent-sized crowd, but still a good handful of empty seats from what I saw. So that was, a little surprising. And now today, the Bears aren't the most fierce opponent, but there was definitely a lot of Bears fans in attendance today. So they traveled well. They filled up a good amount of seats, but Ravens fans didn't come out as much as they usually do. And again, weather was really nice today. There wasn't a threat of rain. It was warm. So, it's definitely worth questioning, but we'll see how they finish. They've got, the Thursday night game and then a Monday night game. So they got a couple primetime games that they can hopefully get some nice crowds for those, but we'll see.
What percentage for the Steelers game, what percentage would you say the stadium was full for that game?
Off the top of my head, I'd say roughly, I'll go 90%.
Okay,
lower 90s. Yeah, it was a noticeable, a couple patches of empty seats, but it was hard to judge. It was very full for the anthem. I think everyone kind of wanted to be in their seats for that, just with all the buzz that was going on in the week leading up to that. But after the anthem, it kind of emptied out a little bit. People went on and, did their normal game day stuff, went to the concession stand and whatnot. So it wasn't packed as packed as it usually is, but it wasn't as bad as today for sure.
Well, I think a big reason why the Ravens are doing all these things, like the big video boards, the corner scoreboards that are eventually going to be put up within the next 2 years, and then the things like the new entranceway that the players run out of before the game. I think all that has been done because attendance has struggled so much recently. And yeah, visually, aesthetically, it is pleasing. But I'd rather have a successful team on the field than all these flashy things around the stadium. So certainly something to keep an eye on as we go throughout the season here, the attendance. So moving ahead, where are you on this team? The NFL is such a week-to-week league. The Ravens are a prime example of that. The 2 very, very good wins start off the season. You're feeling good. You're 2-0. Then you have 2 terrible losses to the Jaguars and then a division opponent in the Steelers. You go on the road and you demolish. I wouldn't say demolish. You have your best performance of the season against the Oakland team on the road. Yes, it didn't have Derek Carr, but the Raiders are supposed to be a contender. I don't think the Raiders are as good as people thought they were going into the season. But nevertheless, good win there, and then you come home and drop a home loss to a 1-4 team. So moving ahead as we get ready to face the Vikings and then the Dolphins on Thursday night. Where are you on this team, especially after seeing them lose and then the Steelers win today? Do they still have a shot at winning the division, or do you think they're on a slippery slope towards 500 or below?
It's hard to say. Like you mentioned before, 3 of the next 4 games are on the road. Usually, that scares you, but so far this year, they're better on the road than they are at home. Just slightly, but still, they've got more road wins than home wins. And, the next 4 games, especially after the Rodgers injury today, I could see them winning all 4 games. I could see them losing all 4 games. I don't know. Any combination in between, it's hard to say. They've just been so inconsistent, especially on offense. And, you got to, like you said, you got to take it week by week. If they can get a big road victory against the Vikings, they'll be right back in it. But the Steelers winning today was definitely that definitely hurts, because I think coming in, a lot of people just pegged them for a loss. So they've created some a little bit of breathing room for themselves on top of the AFC North.
Yeah, myself, one of those people that picked the Steelers to lose. Such a week-to-week league, and that goes to show as my record last week picking games was 2-12. I haven't even looked at the how my picks went this week. But once again, on the Charm City Birdwatch podcast, Nolan McGraw, our author and contributor for Charm City Birdwatch, Nolan_MCG on Twitter. I am J McDonnell95 on Twitter, your host, Jake McDonnell. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at CharmCityBW and Facebook.com/CharmCityBirdwatch. Nolan's recap of this 27-24 overtime loss to the Bears is on CharmCityBirdwatch.com. And again, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and also you can follow us if you have a WordPress account on Charm City Birdwatch and all of our social media as well. Once again, the Ravens dropping a 27-24 overtime loss to the Bears. So hopefully next week the Ravens can rebound on the road and pick up a win in Minnesota. Won't be easy. Not a easy place to play, but like Nolan alluded to, and as I alluded to earlier in the episode, the Ravens so far have a 2-1 record on the road, whereas they're 1-2 at home. So until next time on the Charm City Birdwatch podcast, I'm Jake McDonnell. For Nolan, we'll see you next time.